Well, K-State and Utah just played the wildest game of the Big 12 season. Utah somehow, someway, wins 51-47 to preserve their at-large playoff hopes, or are they gone anyway? We've got a lot to discuss. Welcome into the channel. I am John Kurtz. It is Open for Business, the best Big 12 podcast on planet Earth. Make sure that you subscribe as you file in here. I'm just telling you right now, this is a premiere, so I'm not actually here live, so fill up the chat, go nuts, have fun. I'm sure everybody has a lot to say after watching that one. If you do want to submit a super chat, I appreciate it. That is great. I will not be able to respond to it because I've pre-recorded this video and then I'm just letting it run as a premiere. Okay, so just as a heads up, there is that. I want to not have you be upset if you submit a super chat. Don't actually get anything in here from it. You are welcome to do it. Liking the video, totally free, and I really appreciate anybody who does that. All right, Utah wins 51-47. This game, guys, I don't know how to even unpack everything that just happened in this game. K-State had 574 yards of offense. It was the best rushing day in K-State history. It was the best day for a K-State running back in K-State history. Joe Jackson finished with one more yard than Darren Sproles, who had a 292-yard game once upon a time. K-State rushed for 11 yards a carry. They rushed for 472 yards in the game, which is just nuts. No single player has ever rushed for more yards than Joe Jackson rushed for in Rice-Eccles Stadium history. And yet Utah, down by 10 points with about 3 minutes left to go when they scored the first touchdown, right? They find a way to win. They come back and win. And so first things first, I know K-State fans have a lot to say about what I would deem legitimately controversial officiating here in a couple of key spots. Outside of, I know fans will complain about, and I was complaining about some of the stuff along the way that seems a little bit borderline, but there were two calls in particular here that weighed very heavy at the end of the game that I think are legitimately controversial. One of them, maybe I'll get an explanation on. I was asking for that on Twitter. We'll see. But let's table that discussion. Utah deserves a lot of credit for finding a way to come back and win this. I mean, after VJ Payne forced the fumble, K-State gets it. Joe Jackson rips through an arm tackle. Kyle Whittingham throws his headset down on the sideline, and K-State's about to go up, you think, by potentially 14 points. It felt like game's over, totally dead in the water moment right there, right? Stadium's completely lifeless. And credit Utah for making the play to run back the 2-point try. That is play number one that I think is very controversial, that not only does a flag get thrown there, but then it gets picked up. You know, I mean, looking at the replay of that, there's definitely some contact there. And I would just ask, like, how often do you see a flag get picked up in that spot? It is very rare to see a pass interference flag picked up. When there is like legitimate contact there, you hardly ever see it. And it happens on a play when it gets run back for 2 the other way. Man, I mean, it was a massive play. It was a massive play. And like, I understand that K-State would have still had to score a 2-point conversion to have then, after a long touchdown run, well, the long run that set up the touchdown run for Devin Dampier, still could have been tied and gone to overtime had K-State converted. But yeah, that's a huge play. And also, I just think the momentum of the play mattered quite a bit. If you're a K-State fan, I think you're definitely frustrated with that series, that sequence right afterward, the first down call. You know, I mean, it's hard to get mad at Matt Wells when he had literally a historic day against a great defense against Utah, but the RPO on first down really didn't work. I would have loved to have just seen Joe Jackson, who again is having this historic day, get a couple of carries. And then, you know, I know it drives us all nuts. Another third down throw short of the sticks. This one, at least I could see the concept of. This was not your typical, like, just out route from Matt Wells at the sideline that winds up a couple of yards short of the sticks on a third or fourth down. It was not that. It was, they were trying for a little bit of a rub. They wanted to get a little bit more of kind of the pick play going and free up some space for Tibbs on the slant. So I see the concept there, but it is frustrating that it's like, okay, there you go, throwing short of the sticks again on a gotta have it type of play. And then, man, I mean, you give up. You see that happen sometimes when you sell out on a third or fourth and short. Everybody, if you get bunched up in one gap, there can be cutback lanes and big plays can happen in situations like that. We saw it earlier in the game. K-State, Joe Jackson busted a touchdown run on that earlier in the game when it was fourth and short. after what I thought was a pretty bad spot when Avery Johnson looked to have the first down. And then Joe Jackson pops a long touchdown run, because of a similar sort of thing. So, look, Utah made a ton of plays down the stretch. Devin Dampier, who had not been throwing the ball well at all throughout the game, threw a total dime to get that touchdown, which was the first score and was the play that really pushed the momentum. And even before that, I mean, the 3rd and 22 throw that he had into a tight window, got it to within a yard of the first down. That was a monster throw too, when Dampier was just off. And he's not a guy that's going to be just drilling it into tight windows consistently anyway. But I think even by Devin Dampier standards, he was a little bit off. Brock Osweiler was saying as much on the broadcast. Not a quintessential day for him, but he stepped up and made huge throws and huge plays when he had to have it. Look, the other controversial thing here is down 2 scores. I mean, K-State gets a stop on 4th and 1. And the thing that I have yet to see explained is the officials were holding the play up. So admittedly, I was like, I assume Utah had subbed because the officials were then holding the play, right? How often do we see that in college football now? They'll hold a play up. Well, they let the other team run their guys off the field and then snap the ball. In this case, it was like they were holding it up until K-State's defensive lineman got about 3/4 of the way to the sideline and then pulled off, let Utah snap it, and then threw the flag. So I'm just looking for an explanation there. I understand K-State fans are irate about that. I was certainly just like, hey, I've never seen that. So I'm wondering if there's a rule there. Would you adjudicate it differently in a late game situation for some reason? But that just is a peculiar thing that I've literally never seen in a college football game until it happened there. But there may be a good explanation for it. So I'm holding that space open. Somebody let me know on Twitter at JL Kurtz if I'm missing that. Because again, if you are here in the chat, please leave me lots of chats. If you leave a super chat, I'm running this as a premiere. I'm not actually there live, okay? Because I got to go do 3MA. So if you leave a super chat, don't get upset that I don't answer it. I'm not actually here, but I do want to go ahead and make that clear really quick. I mean, I cannot stress to you enough. Set the controversy aside, set the ending aside. The fact that K-State was in that game, scored 47 points, had a historic rushing day. It is one of the most staggering, stunning performances I have ever seen in a college football game. Not because K-State did it, but because they did it without, I don't know what Utah was doing today, man. K-State's offensive line has been below average at best throughout the year. That running back room has had no explosiveness. They said it over and over on the broadcast. I'm glad they did, so that I didn't look like a fool for talking about it all week. K-State had not had explosive runs all day. K-State had more 30-plus yard runs in this game than they had the entire season. Okay, and Utah had only allowed 4 going into the game. K-State only had 7 going into the game, and K-State had, I think it was 8. I started losing count at one point there, and one of them did get called back. But K-State eclipsed that total and put up twice as many as Utah had given up the entire season, man. Unbelievable. I don't know how to explain that. Joe Jackson just had no juice, and all of a sudden today, he looked awesome. He was ripping through tackles. He looked faster. I don't know where that came from. Antonio Martin was a transfer that people were kind of excited about when they got him. They thought he'd be this power back, the Thunder to Dylan Edwards Lightning. We just didn't see him like it all this year. A couple carries, looked very nondescript, nothing special at all. And all of a sudden, Antonio Martin was busting out, for some big runs and should have had a touchdown. I mean, that was one of the calls I thought was a little bit weak, was the holding call on Lincoln Cure down the field. Now, K-State scored anyway, drove down and scored, so that didn't wind up being very consequential. But it was a great run by Martin. And I'm just sitting here like, how is this happening? Avery Johnson was running the football harder and better than he had a lot of times this year. So it's just like everything came together. That's kind of what you expected K-State to look like this year, except with Dylan Edwards. So I don't know how that happened. I'm sure a lot of it is Utah sleepwalking. Kyle Whittingham basically said as much going into halftime. We got to stop the run. We're flat. I'm sure that's a lot of it for Utah, but K-State still ran the ball pretty well in the second half. Let me see what the second half numbers were here. Okay, 124 yards, but still 5.4 yards per carry, 124 yards in the second half for K-State. You extrapolate that out for a game, and you would have told me they rushed for 248. I would have said that's a hell of a day. So even after some adjustment, K-State still had something working today. The thing that I would wonder here, if I'm a Utah fan, like this is great. I'm sure this feels great. I'm sure this feels awesome to get the win after what you had gone through. I'm not saying like you're not going to, this is kind of a greasy one if you're a Utah fan. You're not going to go home feeling like, oh man, like what an awesome performance. But because of how wild it was and the crescendo of getting the win. But what I do wonder now is like, does Utah even have any at-large shot at all? I wonder if a performance like that just killed any at-large chance that they have, because it's going to hurt Utah in the metrics, right? The metrics had just been in love with them because they pound everybody. They win in blowout fashion so often. That's going to hurt in the metrics. And anybody who watched that game, which I'd imagine people were legitimately tuning into that game because of how wild it was, and it's been kind of a sleepy day, to be honest, in college football so far. I think that's going to hurt. People are going to look at these numbers and be like, "That you're telling me that's a playoff team against a 5-5 K-State team that lost to Army?" I don't think that's going to help. And it was already going to take chaos probably for Utah to get in. But you're just, what this really to me opens the door for is for Miami to just like come charging through from behind Utah in the standings. Like you've totally opened up that door. So now, I mean, if you're a Utah fan, as I am recording this right now, you're turning on the BYU game and you are rooting like hell for BYU to lose and just open up a world of possibilities for two lost teams into the Big 12 championship game, I think here. I would not, if I'm a Utah fan, I'm not feeling good at all about at-large chances. Right or wrong, whatever. I would not feel great about it after witnessing that performance. So you kept those hopes alive. Incredible comeback. I'm sure it was an insane game to be at if you were at Rice Eccles and you got to experience that. I mean, a Utah fan just experiencing it in general had to be crazy, pulling one completely out of the fire. But I think you're now definitely on like BYU needs to lose watch. You got to go hate watch your rival at this point. Because, the other things I was going to comment on that happened today, just real quick. I mean, it's like everything that the Big 12 has needed for a couple weeks now to have a better shot at getting an at-large and having a second team in. It's just not gone the way that you want it to. Notre Dame today was up 21-0 before its offense had even taken a snap. Like, I think it was a couple defensive scores and a block punt touchdown. Missouri couldn't get it done for you in beating Oklahoma. They scored 6 points today, even with Bo Prabula back. Like, just could not move the ball at all on Brent Venables' defense. So you're just getting no help. You're getting no help. USC couldn't beat Oregon. Oregon won that game by a couple of scores. I mean, they're going to be in the playoff. So no chance that you had them tumbling back behind you, even though, we can definitely debate the resumes of Oregon and BYU, but that is one that will definitely help. Beating USC by 2 scores. That's a big feather in the cap there. So that one definitely hurts the BYU at-large case as well, that Oregon did that pretty convincingly today. They held them at arm's length throughout really the entire game. So it's not looking good, man. It's not looking good for that second Big 12 team to get in, unless, I still would say, the scenario where Texas Tech they were to lose the Big 12 championship game to BYU, and BYU doesn't lose until they get there, right? That's probably your only scenario where that works out at this point. So that's a quick take. I'll have more to say after I will do a legit live after the BYU Cincy game tonight, so we can come and talk about this a little bit more. As I mentioned, I'm running this as a premiere, so it means I'm not actually here doing this live. It's pre-recorded. I'm running it as live. So if you dropped in a super chat, you were expecting me to answer your question or comment, I can't, but remind me of it or let me know, if you want an answer and you did drop a super chat, let me know later on tonight. I'll try to make that right, or you can DM me on Twitter at JL Kurtz, something like that. But I appreciate all of you who are here. I hope you all had some fun hanging out in the chat. I hope you've been enjoying just a wild day of Big 12 football. But I'm going to hop over and do 3-Ma. So if you do want more from the specific K-State side of things, you can get that on 3-Ma. But I'll talk to you later tonight. Enjoy Cincinnati, BYU, and we'll talk soon.